What's up, U.S. History? Welcome back to quarter four. Okay, this is an important announcement that I think everybody should view. Just giving you some updates on how the class is going to look moving forward into quarter four. Most things are going to stay the same. A few very minor changes. So basically, like how I'll do lectures and then have a quiz that ties into it. I recommend you take notes. That's going to look more or less the same. Of course, new material. Some of the lectures and topics, the way I'm covering history, will likely be a little bit shorter, and they're going to be on a lot of greater variety of topics. How I will grade you, like weighting the grade, whether 50% is classwork, 25% will be those Q&A assignments where I will post one of those randomly any day of the week, but you'll get one a week. That's going to stay the same. Remember, Q&As are the one assignment I don't take after the due date because I want to incentivize you checking in regularly, at least once every school day. Journals will stay essentially the same, where we'll do about one journal entry a week. And then remember, don't submit them on the journal posts. You're going to submit them on a post that I will make the last week of the quarter, and you'll have all of your journals listed off in one Google Doc. I think most of you got this down pat at this point. The one change that I'm going to make for journals would be I'm going to start posting a due date with each journal, because really they're not designed for you to wait until the last week of the marking period and then be scrambling around trying to type them all up. They're much easier, and the way I intend them to do is you do them as the lessons unfold. So you don't have to do it necessarily on the day they come out, but I'm going to give a couple day window, or like by the end of the week, each journal entry, like we'll do journal one this week, by Friday, you should have it wrapped up so that information is fresh in your memory. I'd recommend you just do them the day they get posted, view the material and type them up. So anyway, you will see a due date on journals. That's just trying to get people to do them more frequently. Don't submit your journals on each one. I know there'll be somebody that doesn't watch this and is kind of checked out, and they'll submit their journal entry each week on, the journal one, journal two. If you do that, I'm not going to grade them that way. I'll make you go pull them all off, compile them all together, and submit them again for the last week of quarter four. So most of those big things are the same now. Kind of an overarching heads up for how I'm going to be covering history this quarter and what we're getting into. Now, in quarter three, we went really, really in depth on a very pivotal moment in history. And, we looked at the World War II era, which was kind of a hinge point in history where things could have gone in very radically different directions. And we looked at it very in depth, mostly from an American perspective, but I covered World War II really in depth and spent a lot of time on it. For quarter four, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to cover a big chunk of time, like about 50, 60 years at least, that I'll get in, and maybe even a little bit more. So we're not going to go as in-depth on any one given topic or little time chunk of history. I'm going to go over a lot of history and I maybe scratch the surface of it. I will try to get in depth on certain things and definitely try to make it interesting and get you the highlights. But this will be more like what I did in quarter one. And here's an important thing, and you might want to get your history notes out. If you've been taking notes, or even if you haven't, this would be a good time to start up. So if you have like a spiral notebook or some line paper, you might want to get those out right now. And to give you a heads up on this, there's going to be really 2 big pages of notes that we will have ongoing for the foreseeable future, for at least a couple months and maybe even the rest of the quarter. In quarter one, we looked at foreign policy, how America was foreign policy is how we're interacting with the rest of the world. And then we looked at domestic policy, and I would bounce back and forth between the two things. So domestic policy is the home front. So for example, back then we were looking at women's suffrage, for example, or what the progressives were doing in reforms that are happening in the country. Foreign policy would have been like World War I, World War II, things like that, where we're interacting with other countries. So for quarter four, we will have a foreign policy and a domestic policy notes page, and I'm going to bounce back and forth between the two from week to week, sometimes even maybe from day to day. And I will tell you at the beginning of each lecture assignment which of those two, themed units that it would tie into. Today, we're going to be starting off with our first chunk of foreign policy notes, and the heading that you would want to have for it will be the Cold War era. That's about a 50-year chunk of time. We're going to hit a lot of big things in that, but it's all foreign policy stuff. America's new role as one of the two big world superpowers, and then the Soviet Union's the other one, and how we're locking horns and almost get into a war against each other numerous times, but it never pans out quite that way. So foreign policy or the Cold War era, that's one of your pages of notes. The other big theme that we're hitting will be domestic policy, and that one you could title out like the civil rights movement, where America starts to really confront the issue of racism. Now, there's other things that will hit in the civil rights movement too, the women's movement, or just other, domestic like policy reforms and different laws that are coming out. But the biggest theme there will be like the civil rights movement, and we'll be in the near future getting into like Martin Luther King and some of the protests he was doing and big laws that get changed. So hopefully that makes sense to you. 2 pages of notes. If you have questions on any of this or how I'm grading, shoot me an email. I'll get back with you as soon as I can. Today I'm kind of wrapping up and finalizing all the grades because I believe they're going to be printing report cards this afternoon, which is this message is coming out Tuesday morning. So if you do see any errors or any problems, you should contact me ASAP, like today during the school day. And then this week is going to be status quo. Everybody's sitting in advisory, working off their Chromebook. You're either at home doing remote school or you come in and you're in your advisory class all day. But starting next week, students in the high school will be switching classes again. I think my class is a lot better if you are in face-to-face, if you're learning it in person. I think it's easier for you. It's rare that anybody doesn't pass my class when they're actually in my room and have good attendance where they're coming in every day. And honestly, I think it makes it a lot easier to get an A or a B, a high score in my class, because I very much reward effort. And if you come in or just being respectful and paying attention, you'll probably do really good in my class. So I want to. Now, everybody has to do what's right for them. If your family needs you to keep working remote, well, that's fine. I definitely will still be posting lessons on Google the same way it always has been, at least through this year. So you're fine to work home, but you can come in. You have the option to do that. And I want to encourage a lot of you, especially if you're struggling with my class or any others. I think it would be really beneficial if you started coming in every day or even a few days a week. And I want to incentivize that. I want to reward kids that come in. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm not 100% sure yet because we're still kind of in uncharted waters and this is going to be new. So this might change as the quarter goes on, but I do want my class to be interactive. When you come into U.S. history class, I don't plan on sitting you on a Chromebook all day and just telling you to, get the assignment done. It'll be a little bit more interactive than that, and it might change from day to day. There might be some days where we do just come in and work on our Chromebooks, but I want to reward you guys for that actually are coming in. And what you could kind of expect that I have in my head, you'll probably get exempted from some of the online writing assignments and stuff, whether it's an assignment, a quiz possibly, or even like maybe one of those daily like Q&A assignments that I'll post up. If you're in class on a day where I post something like that, there's a good chance that just by joining the class discussion and being there and being engaged and tuned in, I would give you full credit on that. So take that for what it's worth. You don't have to come in, but I would like you to come in. I think it'll be better for your grades. And I maybe kind of selfishly want you to come in because I'm a people person and I like talking to you guys and I haven't met many of you. A lot of you are just a name on a screen and I hate that. I want to know you personally and have two-way interactive discussions with you. And I think history can be learned and absorbed and is more interesting that way. So I hope a lot of you give it a shot and come on in and see me starting next week when we start changing classes. All right, that's all I got for you today. More announcements to come. Make sure you check today's lessons. And if you got any questions, hit me up.